for you. Maybe you're wondering if it's too late. If your second verse is just a fantasy, let me say it clearly one more time. It's not too late. You're not too old, and your best lines might still be unwritten. Welcome to Second Verse, the podcast celebrating artists who turn or return to music after a different journey. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining me for this special solo episode. After a few really powerful conversations with fellow artists on this podcast so far, I thought it might be time to share a bit of my own story. Not because I have it all figured out, I certainly do not, but because like a lot of people I've been talking with, and maybe like you, I reached a point where I thought, wait a second, I think there might still be more music in me. So this is a story of how I found my second verse in music, which, like any good song, builds on the first verse and chorus that led me to where I am today. It's also about what I've learned from the guests who've joined me on this show and how their stories helped me better understand my own. Whether you're an artist or just somebody wondering if it's too late to go back to something you loved, this one is for you. Like a lot of us, I was drawn to music from a young age. I loved my family's record collection. Singing songs was a feature of my early elementary school classes, which I constantly brought home with me. And I convinced my parents to buy me a mail-order guitar because I was obsessed with it. Unfortunately, it would be several more years and a different guitar before I would actually learn to play, but the passion was clearly there at an early age. My first serious instrument was trumpet at age 9, and for a long time, I thought maybe I'd end up in a symphony or a pit orchestra. I loved learning trumpet, excelling at it, and joining high school band even as a 6th grader. And eventually, I learned all the brass, plus a few woodwinds, and so I thought that was my musical future. But as I wrapped up high school, my path shifted. My spiritual life was leading me somewhere new, and I headed off to study Bible and educational ministries. Still, I joined the college symphonic band and basically lived in the music department whenever I could, to the point where there were a lot of music majors who thought I also was a music major. The turning point came the summer after my freshman year, when I revisited the guitar, in fact, this was my second guitar, that I hadn't even brought to campus. I prayed for the skill to learn to play it. I was inspired by guitar-led worship gatherings I'd experienced all year as a university student, and I loved being able to play an instrument where, for the first time, I could accompany myself. In fact, that whole summer, I played so much that I put Band-Aids on my fingers in order to keep playing past the point of pain while I worked to build up calluses. I'd found my new musical passion, and I wasn't looking back. From then on, music was a fixture in my personal and professional life. I've spent my whole adulthood in church music ministry, at times on staff, sometimes a guest artist, and sometimes volunteering. I also started writing original songs, many of them for worship or to tell stories of faith. So music was a constant, but it was like it was waiting to become something more. I didn't know how to dream any bigger with it. In my mind, you were either a household name or you gave your music away, just hoping people were blessed by it. And while I was and am deeply grateful to be in ministry, I also had this quiet ache. Is there more to this than I'm seeing? But I wasn't looking for big change. In fact, it was one day while I was at the vet with my cat for just a regular wellness checkup, just waiting there, scrolling Facebook like we all do, that one of those perfectly targeted ads found me. It spoke directly to that stuck feeling that I had, the belief that unless you were famous, music was just something you did on the side. And that ad's invitation was simple, a free 5-day challenge. So I clicked, I joined, and something shifted. That challenge introduced me to a community of artists who were dreaming again, not in a pipe dream kind of way, but in a real, practical, inspiring way. People of all ages and life stages who were saying, I still want to make music. I still have something to say. Eventually, I attended an in-person event in LA, and I remember sitting there thinking, I'm not too late. I'm just getting started. Of course, inspiration is one thing. Execution is a whole different story. Approaching music as a professional meant facing some hard truths. I had years of experience, writing, leading, performing, even live sound production. But I also knew I didn't yet have all the skills or tools to produce and release music at a professional level. So I had to put in the work. And maybe more importantly, I had to decide I was worth the investment. And that meant avoiding the whole DIY YouTube rabbit hole and instead finding real mentorship. It meant learning new tools and tech. Thankfully, I love tech. It meant saving for gear that would let me create with excellence. And it also meant battling that internal voice that kept saying, "You're too late. You're too all over the place. What makes you think anyone wants this from you now?" So what does my second verse look like today? Well, I'm writing more. I'm singing more. I'm producing and releasing more music than I ever have before. And I'm building real relationships with other creatives. Not just trading likes, but sharing ideas, collaborating, co-writing, encouraging one another, learning and growing together. I'm working on music that I love, with people I respect, and connecting with listeners in ways that feel deeply personal and honest. And for me, it is still just one part of all the creative things I do. And success for me now? Well, it's not about virality. It's not even about constant output. It's about connection. The connection with collaborators. The connection with people who hear a lyric and say, "That's me." The connection with my own sense of purpose. This is my second verse. And honestly, I think it might be better than the first. And along the way, I've learned so much from the people I've interviewed right here on Second Verse. Rick Malloy reminded me that you don't have to be perfect to start. And sometimes we're the only ones holding ourselves back. Rose Calkins brought so much heart to the idea that music can reconnect us to what we thought we lost. Jack Marchant showed how persistence and creativity can overcome limited resources. I deeply resonated with that. And Bob Strachan's story, grief, healing, neurodivergence, artistry, just reminded me of how powerful this medium can be when it comes from an honest place. Their stories helped me better understand my own. Each of them is writing their second verse too, in their own way. And I'm so honored to be part of that chorus. One thing I didn't expect to become such a major theme in this journey, though, discovering that I'm neurodivergent. I've always had what I called serial obsessions. I'd hyper-focus on something, go all in, and then burn out and move on to the next thing. I blamed myself for being inconsistent or procrastinating or feeling overwhelmed by things I used to handle. And then I saw a TikTok because, of course, and it hit me like a freight train. So I did what many of us do, deep dive research, and eventually get a diagnosis. Finding out in my 40s that I had ADHD didn't change my creativity, but it explained so much of it. It reframed how I thought about my whole life, and it reminded me that the way my brain works definitely is different. And that's amazing. What others might think is broken, it's designed for imagination, innovation, and artistry. It's not a flaw. It's part of the melody. So where does this all lead? Well, for me, more music, more collaboration, and more episodes like this one. And for you, maybe you're somewhere in the middle. Maybe you're wondering if it's too late. I probably have said, 4 times? You're not too late. You're not too late. So if your second verse is just a fantasy, let me say it clearly one more time. It's not too late. You're not too old, and your best lines might still be unwritten. Don't wait for everything to, make sense. Just start. Even a whisper is a verse. So here's the spotlight moment. Coming back to music isn't about picking up where I left off. It's about writing something new with all the life I've lived since. And here's one takeaway. Ask yourself, What would success feel like today? Not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago, today. And then this is your second verse spark. What dream have you been quietly carrying? Could this be the moment you bring it back into the light? Well, if this resonated with you, if you're finding your way back to music or creativity or any part of yourself you thought was gone, I'd love to hear your story. DM me, email me, tag me in your post, leave an audio message through secondversepod.com. Let's build a community of artists writing their second verse together. And if you haven't already, I hope you listen back to the first 4 episodes. Every guest has brought something beautiful to this conversation. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Keep singing, keep writing, keep creating, and I'll see you next time on Second Verse. To wrap up today's episode, I'd like to share a song of mine that really dives deep into this emotional experience of reclaiming one's life. So stick around and listen to It's Your Story Now.
I'll never forget the first time you shared your pain. You carry it still, but you stumble beneath the weight. You were so young when they split your heart in two. It doesn't define you, it's just what you went through. You know who you are, you know where you're from, the lies you've been told, and things you have done, but who you will be, who's yet to say. Turn up your sound, sing a new phrase. It's your story now. You dream of a future where none of the hurt remains, but memories can drag you down like rusted chains. Let's wipe away the tears that stain your cheeks. You're already a star, it's obvious to me. You know who you are, you know where you're from, the lies you've been told, and things you have done, but who you will be, who's yet to say. Turn up your sound, sing a new phrase. You weren't supposed to be the grown-up in the room. It's not your fault, it happened way too soon. You know who you are, you know where you're from, the lies you've been told, and things you have done, but who you will be, who's yet to say. Turn up your sound, sing a new phrase. You